Hello and welcome to the EIC Scale Up 100 info session. The EIC Scale Up 100 is one of the EIC key forthcoming activities to support European deep tech scalers. I'm Sarah Yud and I'm here with Viorel Pekka, head of the EIC Transition and Business Acceleration Services unit in EISMEA. His unit's mission is to make EIC funding smarter by accompanying it with access to coaches and mentors, access to partners like investors, corporates, public and private buyers, and access to ecosystem peers. Viorel, many thanks for being with us today. To break the ice, a short questions with a really short answer. Where do you see the upcoming EIC Scale Up 100 initiative among other business acceleration services offered by EISMEA?
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. Well, look, I see the Scale Up 100 a bit like the cherry on the cake, if you want, where we are definitely looking for our most, let's say, ambitious and with the highest potential companies, sort of creme de la creme, if you want, both from our portfolio of past and present EIC beneficiary, but also going into the member states and other European programs. So really excited about it.
Thank you. So the expectations are clearly very high from these initiatives. We
Absolutely.
have had the first info session on 14th June in Paris, held on the occasion of the Scaling Up with EIC event. It has triggered a lot of interest and also follow-up questions. We have taken them into consideration, and that's why we are here with you today with an updated presentation and with an updated and expanded list of questions that we will cover at the very end. But before, I will invite Viorel to walk you through the action by first setting a bit of the scene, why we are launching this action and why we are launching it now, and then diving deeper into the details of the action by first focusing on the expected impact, what do we want to achieve with it, and then going into the very essence of the action. What is it about, and what do we want the implementing entities to carry out, and then concluding with some of the practicalities on the call application itself. So without further ado, Viorel, I will yield the screen to you.
Thank you. Let's see. So look, with this action, and actually with the whole EIC, we want to position Europe as a global innovation leader. This is the clear mission of EIC. We doubt ourselves the unicorn factory, and we think that all these actions are very important to keep Europe at not only at the forefront of innovation, but to keep our prosperity. And also, they are essential. The deep tech innovations, they are essential to meet our ambitious goal, both in terms of digitalization, but also the very important priority of the Commission, the Green Deal. And we see, unfortunately, in the current environments, we see that these are more relevant than ever. If we go to the next slide, I think it's very important to start on a very positive note. I think according to the latest Atomico report, Europe is firmly positioned as a global leader. Okay, in 2021, we passed the mark of $100 billion of capital invested. Only in 2021, we had 98 new unicorns, and you can see on the screen the constant progression in number of unicorn, both VC and non-VC backed, from 2019, where they were under 200 to last year with 321. Again, only in 1 year a progression of almost 100 unicorns. If we look also in terms of money raised, this is also reflected. I mean, regarding the the startup or the seed fund, we are basically at par, or in 21 we're at par with the US, with 33% for Europe and 35 for Europe. And actually, the picture is even better than that, because you see this is a constant improvement. I mean, in 2015, US had at 54%, and before it had like even 75%. So it's a clear improvement and progress of Europe. However, if you look at the higher rounds, the growth, like here you see only between 5 and 10 million, but it's even more striking if you combine all together. You see clearly that US has a lead. So clearly, for the moment, the situation in Europe, that there is insufficient growth capital, the one that allows from Series B and more, that allows the scaling up of the company. So I think here we need to focus in the next period. If you add to this the kind of known but still with quite some impact issue that we have, the diverse legal frameworks, even here I think it's important to mention the positive. There are more and more let's say a regulation at European level. GDPR was one of them, but now we have two others in the area of digital. So this is also helping to the startups and the scale-ups. In terms of ecosystem, I mean, it is clear that the progress that I was mentioning could not be done without a very rich ecosystem that have grown over the years. However, where we are still failing is in interconnecting this ecosystem, also to kind of compensate a bit for the diverse from the heterogeneous legal framework. So here there is one aspect to still to improve. There is also the relatively big geographial disparity between East and West, and even a bit between North and South. And I think there is a clear role model, also a lack of role models, especially if you look at the European level. At the national level, there may be some role models, which is good enough, but still at European level, we do not have them, or at least not so known as in the US. And I think we as European, we are still remaining a bit more risk averse than in the US, or even in the world. Now, okay, let's start, if you want, with the end in mind, okay, or with the eye on the horizon. What should be the impact at the end of this program? So I think if I could catch this in one sentence, it would be that these the supported company, the 100 company, they should be positioned as a successful and fast-growing future leaders. I think this is, if you want, the overall goal. How to do this? There are other, let's say, more partial impacts. Obviously, attracting capital is a necessary ingredient for any scaling up initiative, but is not enough. We want that at the end of this initiative, there are clear improvement in knowledge and skills of this scaling up company, especially in the management and leadership part, that they would increase their network, both in terms of fundraising, potential customer, opening new markets, and then also combining all this together, that let's say the image of Europe in the world in terms of scale up is clearly improved, because today almost like a broken pattern, what you hear again and again is that US is there, China is not far behind, and Europe it's almost nowhere. I'm characterizing a bit, but that we want to be changed. And just to mention that the Scale Up 100 is clearly has a higher ambition than the current Scaling Up 30 pilot, both not only by the budget foreseen, but also in terms of activities that we want to cover, support activities, and both their intensity and breadth. Now, what are some activities? I think the work program is very flexible, because this should be one of the, let's say, the secret ingredient, the secret sauce of the applicants. But a few suggestions which are, let's say, a bit obvious, if I may. Obviously, increasing funding or raising growth capital is clearly number one, and goes without saying. But definitely we want to go, and the applicants will need to go further than that. I would call this sufficient, necessary, but not sufficient. So definitely business support, business development. I mean, it's very important to raise capital to develop the products and have the capacity to expand. But if you don't get customers or you don't sell your product, it will come to nothing in the end. So definitely business development support, of course, expanding on the international arena, whether that means at the European or outside the Europe. Outside Europe, obviously improving the operational excellence with a range of measures. We leave this at the latitude of the proposer, from training, mentoring, coaching, role models, etc. A network expansion, that clearly from matchmaking with investors to potential customer corporates and so on. And then also branding. It's very important to see both the each and individual company increasing its brand recognition, but also of the group as a whole. We were discussing internally and wondering if supported by EIC makes sense as a sort of a branding support. But again, it's up to the proposer. And another important component, if you want, which is not necessary to the 100 companies themselves, but more, if you want, as a legacy and to the wider ecosystem, is the feedback to ecosystem and policy. Whether this report that we are mentioning about the scale-up trends and KPIs, exchange of best practices between the member states, policy recommendation, both European level and at the member state level, obviously making the comparison between various legal framework, and here all these, I think that they are important. Now, a bit more details now. Again, 50, the idea is to select 50 companies from the EIC beneficiary, past and present, and then 50 or up to 50 from relevant national programs, but also other European programs like Digital Europe, EIT supported company, and so on. What is important is that the applicant should propose a methodology to identify these participating companies. That should be their secret sauce, and they should have the competence to implement it. That's very, very important. And then the work program mentioned a few points, namely that they should have a diversity of sectors, so not only the healthcare or not only digital and so on, and also to look at the geographical balance, and also to pay attention to the gender balance as well. Now, if we quickly move to a link to other initiative, I think it's very important that this proposal, this project actually is well connected. Okay, on one hand with the national European innovation programs for several things, sourcing of companies, but also this policy feedback that I was mentioning. And regarding these aspects, I think there are at least two instruments to do this. One is the EIC Forum, where the member states are present, and I think it's a good instance to share best practices, to do policy recommendation. But also there is an organization which started relatively recently by the member states themselves, European Startup Nations Alliance, headquartered in Portugal, which is also, I think, important to make the link also for policy recommendation. Now, there is an important link to our EIC Business Acceleration Services. So I think it's very important that you as an applicant look at these services and you see how you can on one hand collaborate and get synergies, and on the other hand, how do you complement? Okay, that I think it's important element that you should really consider. And then of course there are some others. I don't know, we leave it up to you. EIT is another example for fundraising, but many others. Sarah, perhaps you can help me here with the practicalities, how the applicants should or the potential applicants can apply.
Indeed, we follow the general submission process for all Horizon Europe calls. This means that the submission happens through the Funding and Tenders portal. The action is the coordination and support action instrument, which means that the call is open to single beneficiaries or consortia of entities proposing a joint program to carry out the actions foreseen under the EIC Scale Up 100. The condition is that it consists of a minimum one entity from European member states or Horizon Europe associated countries. However, other entities from beyond of this pool are invited to participate. However, they cannot benefit from the European funding in this case. If you wish to form a consortia, we would invite you to indeed use the partner search option on the funding and tenders portal, or consult with your NCP network to look for partners either in your geography or geographies elsewhere in Europe. Viorel, would you like to cover the budget and duration?
Yes, indeed. Let's go back one slide. I think we have foreseen an ambitious budget of 7 million euro. I think this speaks a lot and send a message about the ambition that you need to have. The duration is let's say not specified in the work program, so gives you the flexibility, but we consider that you will need at least 3 years of actual support to have to scale up the company, to put them on the sustainable path, as we say in the work program. So I think that a duration between 3 and 4 years is finding the right balance between, again, the duration of support, but also the intensity, because yeah, if you go more than 4 years, obviously the budget per year is smaller. That's normal. Next slide, perhaps. Sarah, what are the important deadlines that our participants, our
Indeed,
proposers?
indeed, there are a couple of milestones ahead of us. We have already reached the first two, meaning that the call has been already open since 26th of April, and now we have taken this period since then to inform potential applicants and our stakeholders about the action, to somehow decode and decipherate the work program text on the EIC Scale Up 100 call. So as mentioned, we had an info day. We are preparing this info session online and other materials that you can consult during your preparation of the program proposal. This should be finalized by our deadline. You still have a lot of time until 5th of October. The submissions should be finalized in the funding and tenders portal by 5 p.m. Central European time, so local time here in Brussels. However, we recommend you not to wait until the very last minute, since the system might get busy and we might have unnecessary technical issues due to that. And here, basically, your part ends, or your intervention ends for some time, since we will take up the process by first evaluating the proposals. We have done an ambitious planning, meaning that we will try to evaluate all the received proposals already in autumn 20 this year, and finalize the evaluation by the end of by the end of this year, in order to inform the winning consortium or entity about the results, or by the beginning of the next year. Of course, this will be followed by a certain period of a grant agreement preparation, administrative steps that are foreseen for all grants under Horizon Europe, and most importantly, where the process then will be back with the winning consortiums, is at with the beginning of the project. We foresee the implementation to start in the second quarter of 2023. So I guess, Viorel, do you have anything to add here?
No, I would say let's go to questions,
Yes,
and then I think this will add a bit
yes.
more clarification.
Yes, I believe that the action clearly sets a huge task for implementing entities. They have to build successful, future, fast-growing, sustainable European champions and leaders. And to achieve this, I believe that one intervention will certainly not be enough. They will have to address different aspects of a scaling up process. So I'm sure that potential applicants might have lots of questions in mind. Indeed, so let's start with questions that we have already received from our stakeholders. And the first question tackles the very definition of companies that implementing entities should support and taken into the cohort of 100 eligible companies. We were referring to deep tech companies, or the work program refers to deep tech companies to be precise. Viorel, what are deep tech companies that we support in the EIC?
Well, I think EIC and accelerator especially, it's all about deep tech companies. Okay, so that's a bit our focus as opposed to all sort of innovation. I remember with the discussion in the Paris event. They would say, well, look, this is more a spirit rather than or a mantra, if you want that, rather than exactly something exactly. But our work program defines deep tech company as company that are developing innovations that are based or rooted on cutting edge or deep scientific advances and discovery, and they need to constantly stay at this cutting edge, and they go back and forth between research and then bringing those research to market. Also, I don't know, there are different names. For example, in the US, tough tech is another word that is synonymically used, but in general, it apply to companies that are in the healthcare, in biotech, in AI, and of course energy, just to give some examples.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. It's best to clarify to ensure that we stay on the same terms with applying entities. So, with the second question, we are staying with participating companies. So, how shall the implementing entity select these participating companies?
A very important question, Sarah, and also very sensible because, yeah, obviously there are important support measures attached for those companies. So I think it's important that this process is important to mention that this is up to the applicants to propose this methodology. It's if you want, one of the two important methodology that they should pay attention. So they have complete flexibility. Now, it is clear that they will have to start with it's a sort of a high number of company in the beginning. So I would say, kind of logically, we need a sort of uh, a selection method based on quantitative parameters, like the size of the company's amount raised, number of employees, revenues, etc., etc. All that could kind of filter very very quickly the number of companies, and then you may want to look at qualitative or even qualitative factors, and even have a more nuanced approach, perhaps also interview if you can, to select the final list. What is important is to pay attention to what the work program mentioned, namely that we want to have a bit diversity. So, for example, just to say that selecting companies only from one sector, is not good enough. I think European Union, and Europe as such is wide, so we need to have a diversity of sectors, also regional diversity, and even paying attention to the woman-led companies. So there is a bit of flexibility, but also there are some requirements.
Mm. Thank you for giving some tips about indicators that could be used. I'm sure this could be useful for implementing entities. The next question is also indirectly related to the selection of 100 companies. Namely, the action is open up to 50 companies coming from EAC or other innovation programs at the EU or national level. Can you tell us more about these other programs, other suitable programs from which up to 50 companies shall come from?
Indeed, I think this is one of the differences compared with Scale Up 30, for example, and the work program is providing a bit of flexibility. It mentioned on one hand the national programs, and I know this is of big interest to the member states. So um, uh, the let's say the applicants should be able to receive the suggestion from the member state or launch call for expression or just look directly to various sources in member states. Also need to accommodate the fact that certain member states do not have specific scale up programs. So I think we need to not to discriminate against them. And that's okay as long as they fulfill certain criteria. With respect to the European programs, we mentioned just one or two, for example, Digital Europe program, but also the company supported by our colleagues in Pillar 3, the EIT KICS.
Mhm. We have one more follow-up question on the selection of companies. So here, what is the rule to select 50 companies from other program? Is there any specific requirement? Can they come only from one program?
Well, I would say if there is one requirement, is they shouldn't come only from one program. Again, we need to have this diversity and find this balance between diversity and potential, and so that they feel they meet this criteria that I was mentioning in the beginning, at least to start with. So I think the balance and flexibility is the keyword here.
Mhm. So um, yeah, it seems we have lots of question about the selection of companies. So here is a question about companies coming from national programs, not coming from national programs, but meet the requirements for scaling up. This is the sentence taken from the work program. Uh, do you know more what these requirements refer to? Can you reveal a bit more about that?
Indeed, Sarah. I mean, this is here is the direct link with the methodology that the applicant should propose. So let's assume that he will have a bit of a pre-selection parameters or criteria, like I mentioned, I give just some example before. Then it means these companies that are not supported by national programs, but obviously they are incorporated in the member states. They will have to meet to fulfill, and if they do so, then they should be taken into consideration
Mhm.
at the next stage. So the fact that they are supported by a national program for scaling up, and we know there are a few member states, and that's very good. The fact that there are, or the member states does not have such a program, that should not be a barrier for the most promising company from that member state, from the member states to be selected and supported afterwards.
Mhm. So we are talking about companies from different programs from across Europe, but could you just clarify in which stage of funding should the supported companies be? Is it companies that we target, should they be in Series A or B or pre-revenue?
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think this is an important aspect because, as we mentioned before, we have like 3-year period. So, if you select a company that is very early, like pre-revenue or just have a few employees, perhaps not even the product at TRL 9, it may be difficult or even impossible to put him on a sustainable path. So I think it's important to select companies that are a bit more mature, that they had at least one funding round, like a Series A, but it could be that they had more than one, and they, for example, raised also the Series B. So that's fine to find. You need to find the balance between obviously not selecting unicorn or companies that have scaled
Right.
up already. That's I think they can be involved like a sort of a networking or role model because they have a certain expertise, but also not selecting companies that are too early. I think that's very important to find this balance.
Mhm. One more very important question about selection of companies and very relevant, I guess. Can the action support companies that are already part of the EAC Scaling Up pilot that you have mentioned during your presentation?
A very good question, Sarah. I'm sure because there are I think
It
40
comes from our
companies.
stakeholders, yes.
Yes, yes. Look, in principle, I mean, and if you look at our program, there's nothing that prevents selecting some of those companies again. But on the other hand, I mean, the Scale Up 30, already have this objective of scaling them up. So I would assume that they already successfully put them on a certain trajectory, that they would not kind of need to be selected again. But but now if there are certain companies that make sense, or they have good, let's say, arguments, of course they can be included. But what I would like to avoid, if you just to give perhaps one easy example, is that not all the 30 or 40 companies from the current pilot are ending up in as part of the 50 companies selected EIC beneficiary, just to give an easy example.
Indeed, and hopefully they will all be unicorns by the time when the action
Yes,
ends.
exactly.
So no need for further support. This brings us to further to the next question. Eventually, we always come to money. How much money will be the selected companies granted?
Indeed, the number one question. Well, I mean, I hope I don't disappointing anybody, but the companies themselves will not get any direct money because, yeah, with 7 million, what can they need to raise hundreds of millions. So no, so there won't be direct money. This money will go to the let's say the selected consortium to support those companies. Okay.
Yes, I guess you're not disappointing anyone. This is good news for the consortium that they have
Yeah,
the whole budget to spend on the services offered to the companies.
indeed, indeed.
And this is also covered by the next question. So, if companies do not receive any money, um, can you elaborate a bit on the services that and activities that the consortium or the winning entity, implementing entity is supposed to carry out?
Indeed, I think this is definitely an important question. And here is the big difference with the current pilot. So clearly, will I mean, fundraising is a sine qua non. They will have to get support to raise growth funding. But more than that, I mean, it's obviously they need money to develop their product, to expand, but also, in the end, they need support and measures to support them to do business. I call this business development. So contact with customers. Obviously, expanding at a global level is important. So here, soft landing, internationalization, even certain help with identification of lead, training, mentoring. These are important aspects. But also, expanding their network to potential customers, or obviously to raise funding as well, but also working with corporates, procurers, um, anything that helps them to grow. And I would also I think we know the importance of the marketing and branding. I think this is very important, and even let's see if we can establish this supported by EIC brand, so that those companies are recognized also by their customers, potential customers. Say, wow, this is an innovative company, high potential. I want to do business with.
Indeed. Our goal is that all Europeans will know the names of this 100 scale-up companies.
Absolutely.
Uh, a bit related to the previous question, I guess the services will uh, the essential part of the services are also networking events. What kind of networking events? You have mentioned some stakeholders, how they could be brought together, maybe some hints from the business acceleration services, what we are doing that could help the implementing entity.
Indeed, I think when in the current bus, we have a lot of wealth experience with organizing events, and what we see that the most successful one are the one that are well prepared, well curated, where there is a let's say good preparation in terms of fit between the companies and the let's say the potential corporate customers in terms of corporates procurers or any other company. um, we are experimenting in the bus services with what we call a bottom-up approach, but I think here it's clearly the approach is slightly different. Is what I would call more top-down in the sense that, for example, if I take corporate, we are starting from the needs in the business acceleration services. We are starting from the needs of the corporates because we want to increase the chances of them selecting a few of the 5,000 or 6,000 companies that we have supported across the years. Here, however, the job of the contractor is to start from the needs of those 100 companies, so they can select starting from their needs and their products. Obviously, some sectorial grouping, they will select those partners that may be interested and relevant for them. So it's a complementary approach, and of course they should encourage and even support them to apply to the call for expression of interest for the business acceleration services.
Mhm. Thank you. I guess the actions, some ideas that have floated around that we have discussed today, it's quite a lot to be implemented. So the next question is kind of natural. Is the foreseen 3 years, 4 years that you have mentioned enough, since it might be difficult to ensure the expected impact in such a short time? Can the action last longer?
Yes, I would say it's a kind of a minimum three years. So anything between 3 and 4 years, I think it makes sense. In principle, if the consortium um, um, consider can even more than 4 years. But again, the more that the action take, the less budget per year, and then the less support they can offer. So that is I think a good balance, but it can take more than 3 years. Yes.
Mhm, mhm. We are moving into more practical questions now. So, who can be part of the implementing consortium?
Well, this is the normal rules apply. So they can vary from one applicants to a consortium. If it's, I think you explained
Yeah,
the
indeed.
rules very, very well. We can even obviously associated countries. If there is an international organization, I think it needs to be well justified, and only we can only provide funding if the experts agreed that this is an essential has an essential part for the let's say for the success of the action. So you might need to be careful there. But otherwise, anything from a private to public or semi-public, we are
Indeed. Indeed.
flexible.
It's rather open and flexible. True.
Exactly.
This brings us to the last question, and this is about the application itself. Can you tell us more about the format of the application? Is it similar to the proposal for EC Accelerator?
No, no, absolutely not. And this may come like good news because you don't have different phases. It's just one proposal. I think the overall size should be limited to 30 pages. And then, yeah, you have a bit of a first part with administrative data. That's quite easy. And then and that part is limited to 30 pages. You need to describe your proposals, and obviously there we have a template. But what is
Mhm.
important, I think, to it's not the form, but the content that should drive you, and your passion to support scaling up of European companies. That should be the main driver, and the template is sufficiently flexible in this respect.
Indeed, the applicants should be guided by objectives and expected impact of the call when thinking of the actions to be implemented and proposed in the template proposal. So, with this, we have exhausted our questions and hopefully helped potential applicants with some insights that might be useful during the application process. In case you might have further questions, we would kindly recommend you to consult the list of very useful sources related to the action itself and to the grant preparation under Horizon Europe. You may also find these links in the video description on YouTube. Viorel, we are at the end. I would like to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us instead of a conclusion. Do you have any final words?
Yes, Sarah, thank you. Look, I think I remember many years ago in, I think, 2011, when with Isidro, Bogdan, and other colleagues were kind of starting up Startup Europe. The situation was completely different. So Europe has come and made such a big progress in 10 years or so. And it's clear now for us as a continent, scaling up is the next challenge. And if I look back at the history, I'm very optimistic about it. And that's why we are so excited about this action, where we put some substantial budget. I definitely invite all the applicants that have a passion and competence to support, to participate and contribute to this mission, to apply. And obviously the 7 million is a lot of money, but this is not what should drive them. That should drive them is the opportunity, the huge opportunity to have an impact at the European Union scale. As one EIC advisory board matters say, in Europe we are developing innovation that matters, and this is definitely an excellent opportunity to be part of this excited journey. So definitely think, reflect what drives you, and if what drives you is the passion to support, to make a contribution at European level, and you have the competencies and added and skills to do apply. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Viorel. EIC is certainly open up to partner with enablers from across Europe to also combine and join forces in resources and expertise to help European companies to scale. So we are certainly excited to and looking forward to receiving your proposals for the EIC Scale Up 100 program by no later than 5th of October this year. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us until the very end. We wish you a good day. Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with your application. Bye.